It should be very comfortable to give your listings away, because if you're not there yet, if you're not to that uncomfortable place, you're probably wondering, I can't imagine giving my listings away. I would never want to do that. Those are my clients. I want to take my own listings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hi, this is Brian Icenhower, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the job description for a real estate listing agent. And this applies to a listing agent on a real estate team. It's a kind of a unique position. You won't see it on a lot of real estate teams because it typically is a listing agent is typically not implemented until a team gets very, very successful. And to kind of understand when to implement a listing agent, we're also going to talk about what they do, talk about how to compensate listing agents as well. Before we do that, let's take a step back and talk about a real estate listing agent on a real estate team. There's two types of teams out there, generally speaking, and we do coach quite a few different organizational structures for real estate teams. A lot of them work, and they work in different ways for different reasons, for different people. Just make sure you're aware of all of those different pros and cons before you start implementing any one particular org structure. There is not a one-size-fits-all thing out there. We've seen a lot of different org structures succeed at very high levels with different profit margins, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, I think it's easy to categorize real estate teams once they get large enough into two different categories. You've got a traditional structure where sales agents are split into real estate buyers agents and then listing agents. So some represent buyers, some represent sellers, and that's that. And they don't cross and they don't intermix. You only represent buyers or you only represent sellers on a real estate team. That's what we call a traditional team, right? That's the way it's worked for quite a long time. More recently, we've seen a lot more what we call a hybrid team form, where actually agents are able to both list and sell. The pros and cons of those two, that's really not for this video. I don't want to get into because we can talk about that one for an hour. A listing agent, what we're going to refer to is someone on a traditional team that just takes listings and what that looks like. When you bring that on, when you bring on a listing agent, also referred sometimes to as a listing specialist or a seller's agent, I've heard. But when we bring that person on, typically where real estate teams start is, you've got some administrative support. You may or may not have some inside sales agents in there, but you definitely have a lot of outside sales agents that are buyer's agents on your team. Typically, you want to build out the buyer's side of the business first. And the team leader, the owner of the team, is typically still taking most of the listings to preserve their profit margin. And we're waiting to grow out that buyer's side. So we usually have multiple buyer's agents growing out there until the buyer's side starts to catch up with the listing side that the team leader is closing, and then hopefully passes a little bit because those buyer's agents are actually producing and bringing in business from their own sources, not just being dependent on the buyer's sides that the team gives them. And that's really important. That's something we really emphasize at Icenhower Coaching and Consulting. All of our teams that we coach, they actually onboard and train through our ICC Online Learning Center, and they're trained and held accountable to how to grow their own sphere of influence database and continuously do the activities, the activity-based indicators that lead to those results where they're bringing business to the team as well too. So with that being said, once we get to a point where the buyer's agents are actually succeeding and we've got enough of them that we can actually support the profit margin, it's only then really that the team leader feels comfortable letting go, and then they start to let go. They just can't get to all the listings that those buyer's agents are generating. Because understand, if they're working their own SOI and they're working buyer leads, they're going to actually drum up quite a few listing leads, and it starts to get very taxing on the team leader to actually handle all those listings. So generally speaking, there's kind of a common sense feeling that we as coaches get from our clients when it's time to bring on a listing agent. And that's typically when they really can't go on all the listing appointments anymore. And you can start to hear it in their attitude, right? They'll say like, oh man, I went on 3 listing appointments today, and 2 of them, they just weren't that good at listings, or they start not wanting to take lower price listings or listings that are a little bit farther outside of their preferred geographic area. They start getting picky. They start getting too picky, right, with listings. And we're realizing we're losing business by not capturing those and not bringing on another listing agent to do that. They start cherry picking start getting a little lazy, quite frankly, or they may continue to do it. And they may continue, but they just start frustrating and suffering from life balance because they're just going on too many listing appointments and they're working too hard. So when that starts to happen, that's generally what it should be very comfortable to give your listings away. Because if you're not there yet, if you're not to that uncomfortable place, you're probably wondering, I can't imagine giving my listings away. I would never want to do that. Those are my clients. I want to take my own listings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The problem, is, you're probably not ready to bring on a listing agent. You'll know, you'll know. That's kind of the key to remember there as to the when. Now let's move into, what they handle. What they handle is really simple. Generally speaking, most of the time, our team leader that brings on a listing specialist, the team leader is going to continue to work their own SOI, higher price listings. Maybe they do some geographic farming and they continue to work listings in those farms because they have themselves established a presence there. And then the new listing agent that's brought on is going to go on listings for their own SOI, the listing agent's own sphere of influence. They're going to, maybe take certain listings below certain price points, take listing leads from other team members, and maybe other team members to generate listings from their spheres of influences. See, these are all people and sources that the lead agent of the team doesn't know. So they aren't feeling like they're getting shortchanged by not getting the team leader taking the listing. It's a very easy handoff, and we're saving the real important listings, the lead agents, the team leaders, SOI, higher price listings, because we need to make sure we get those. So we want to have our, MVP, our most valuable player in there taking those listings, and that's our lead agent, our team leader. So that's our listing specialist starts taking those other listing leads from those other sources. You might even put a geographic parameter around, where we take the listings, like, for example, anything, outside the city or in other suburbs, where there's a little bit more traveling involved, so that the team leader can stay local and central where he or she's branding is very, very strong. And then this new listing specialist works outside of that area or at price below certain price points within the area. Those are very common ways to divvy it up so that we make sure that our listing specialist is very clear as to which types of clients he or she will be working with. As far as compensation goes, it's much more simple. Compensation, very different than what a lot of people think here. I prefer, there's different ways to do this. I prefer to compensate with the base salary, which is very uncomfortable to a lot of people. In real estate, we always want to pay a percentage out of the commissions because it doesn't feel like we're paying anything because we don't pay anything unless income's coming in, so it's not so scary. However, if we have a successful team, and typically you do if you're bringing in a listing specialist, this listing specialist is going to close a lot of transactions, and paying them purely out of commission will end up being much more expensive than if we can just give them a base salary. And you'll be able to attract a lot more people to the base salary too. So, a base salary of 30, 35, 40,000, I've seen it go up to 50,000. And even 60,000. It really just depends on where you live. There's certain areas that pay more, have higher wages than other areas in North America. So kind of adjust that accordingly to where you live and what normal wages are. But I've seen a lot of those as base salaries. And then we're bonusing a very small percentage on the listing sides of the closings that they themselves close as a listing agent. So it might be something like 3%, 5%. I really wouldn't go up to 10% of the GCI from their side. I'd usually keep it around 3 or 5%. So that way they do have some incentive. They are getting a little bit bonused at closing, and the more they sell, the more they make. So it gives them some control over their income, which I still think is very important. And that's pretty much the normal for successful real estate teams with successful listing agents to kind of compensate in that area. And they're very, very happy. Behavioral profiles for a listing agent, I like to see, I believe shocking to a lot of people, if we use the DISC behavioral analysis, I like to see a lot of S behavior in the listings. They love salaries as opposed to commission. They like that security and steadiness of getting a paycheck every couple weeks. So that's number one. But number two, they take a lot of care that listings require. They establish great relationship and trust at listing appointments and with active sellers. So I really like to see S and I in there. My ideal listing specialist profile is a high S, followed by the I behavior a little bit lower, and IS behavior, if we switch them around, so we lead with the I and follow with the S, we get a highly sociable person in the I and a great one-on-one relationship builder in the S that works very well too. So the S and the I behavior. Now, if you don't understand what language I'm talking right now, I'm talking about the DISC behavioral assessment. We use that for lots of things at Icenhower Coaching and Consulting. And we have a course on it. We coach and train on it as well too. All of our one-on-one coaches with our clients, we provide all of our clients behavioral profile access links for anybody in their organization so they know who they're hiring for what position, how to communicate and work differently with different members of their organizations, how to train your agents and team to communicate differently with different types of clients, what type of lead generation techniques work best for different behavioral profiles on your team. And there are endless uses, go on and on and on and on. So very important you get a grasp of that in this business if you're looking at being a part of a real estate organization, or definitely if you're running one. So that would be the behavioral profiles I would really be looking for a listing agent or a listing specialist, be it IS or an SI. Those are my two favorites. I think the D behavior gets a little too hasty. They're great and they're driven and they're dynamic. But they typically move out of roles very quickly, and they can, they're really good on the buyer side. They're aggressive, and they're aggressive salespeople too. But again, we have a listing specialist. We've already taken the listing appointment. This isn't someone that is lead generating like a D is so good at. These listings are coming to this team. We got an overflow amount of them. We need someone who can actually go in and secure the appointment into a contract and establish that rapport with somebody. But D's can work, don't get me wrong. I just tend to see them not stay in the role for a long time like the I's and the S's do too. And the C behavior, oftentimes a little bit has difficulty with their need to be too thorough and too analytical to actually close and build rapport with sellers like is needed to happen in such a quick period of time over a listing appointment. So D's and C's tend to be a little less people-oriented, where the I's and the S's are very people-oriented. They got to build that rapport quickly in one listing appointment to get that contract signed. And that's why I say I's and S's are a little bit better at doing that. So anyway, I hope that helps to give you a good explanation of the job description of the listing agent. We actually have a detailed job description written out that gets a little bit more specific on the exact duties, tasks, production expectations, things like that at ICC that we provide to all of our clients. It's a great thing to get your hands on and something you can use for members of your team when you're ready to bring on a listing specialist. All right, thanks so much for your help and have a good day.